Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the 5 Rounds Podcast. The podcast out there with the cardio for those deep water championship rounds. I am Mags and with me today, stranger, hasn't been on the show for about 6 months, Carlos. Carlos, how are you?
I'm not dead, so that's a good thing. Good to be back, just been busy doing my second semester of my year 2. Just been cracking on with some stuff behind the scenes, so thought I'd jump on this one, especially with the call that we've just had. Well, happy to be back.
Yeah, so we've just finished watching UFC271 from Houston, headlined by the middleweight title match, Israel Adesanya taking on Robert Whittaker for the second time. But before we get there, let's get through these prelims. So we started the night with William Knight picking up the decision against Maxim Grishin in the heavyweights. Then we had Jeremiah Wells picking up the win against Blood Diamond, aka Mark Mathia. Then we went to Douglas Silva de Andrade, getting the sub against Sergey Morozov. AJ Dobson then got the decision in the middleweights against Jacob Malkoun. And we finished these early prelims off with another decision, this time Ronnie Lawrence getting the rub against Mana Martinez. Going into the televised prelims, we actually were meant to get Alex Perez versus Matt Schnell, but that fight got cancelled pretty late on. So we then got, in the light heavyweight division, Carlos Ulberg taking on Fabio Cherant. Carlos picking up the decision. Kyla Phillips got their third round submission against Marcelo Rojo, and then two more decisions. One, Roxanne Modafferi in her last ever MMA fight, unfortunately getting the loss to Casey O'Neill. Casey staying unbeaten, but a lot of controversy in these two fights because one of the judges, who was relatively new to judging, I don't think he's ever watched MMA before, because he gave the fight to Roxanne when it was clearly Casey won the fight.
Yeah, and didn't even let the commentary team take a little bit of Michael out of that.
Yeah, and he did it again 2 fights in a row, because he did exactly the same thing for Arlovsky versus Jared Vanderau. Arlovsky clearly dominated in that decision victory, but then again the same judge gave the fight to Jared Vanderau. Really weird decision making.
It's mental though with Roxanne Modafferi. I know before the event, obviously when I came and he said to you with Roxanne Modafferi when she made her debut, Rick Casey O'Neill were only 6-year-old. Mm-hmm. Well, a couple more stuff like that popped up. Ronda Rousey were yet to make a qualified, for the Olympic team. She were yet to even do anything like that. Nunes were not even training to be a professional fighter or anything like that. And there were another one. What were it? Oh yeah, Joanna Jędrzejczyk only just started training in Muay Thai when Roxanne Modafferi started a professional debut in mixed martial arts, yeah, which is absolutely mental when you think about it.
It's a word gets tossed around, saying like legend and trailblazer. Roxanne Modafferi is the epitome of those for women's MMA. Yes, she may not be the biggest known, she may not be the biggest draw or make the biggest amount of money, but the path she's laid for other female MMA fighters, it'll never be forgotten.
No, absolutely not. She's definitely will go in the Hall of Fame this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we have 5 fights on this main card. Started with Bobby Green versus Nasrat Haqparast. And one thing I did notice all the way through this main card is that a lot of people have been cupping recently.
I was thinking that it literally seemed like near enough every fighter I saw one of the fighters at least were cupping.
Yeah, I mean, for those who don't know, cupping is where you essentially get a glass or some sort of circular instrument, you put it on your skin and essentially you heat up the air inside the glass and it draws your skin into it. It's meant to draw out bad blood, essentially dirty blood. A lot of kind of pseudo science behind it, but yeah, it just seemed that a lot of fighters this month we're doing some cupping. But getting into the fight, a lot of bad blood in this fight before we even touch gloves. Don't know how it stemmed, because both guys are normally pretty kind of, I wouldn't say calm in terms of Bobby Green. I think he's a very energetic guy, but they're normally pretty respectful, so I don't know where the disrespect come from. But in terms of the fight, this was all Bobby Green. And seeing as you've been away for such a long time, Carlos, give us the lowdown on this fight.
Well, the lowdown on this fight, especially with them going at each other near enough straight away. Nasrat being the younger fighter, Bobby Green being in the UFC since 2013. He's been there a long time, so Nasrat he's got the opinion on him that he's got a point to prove. So I think leading up to the fight, he's been mouthing off a little bit. Bobby Green's took that as a little bit disrespectful, and he's just come in and put on an absolute masterclass in boxing. And when I speak about boxing, I'm not on about going and talking about Tyson Fury. Just imagine if Canelo was able to cross over to mixed martial arts, and you was able to see the slipping and the slick ways he was able to move and counter Nasrat's punches. It were absolutely beautiful. Nasrat wasn't able to make a clean connection. Every single shot he threw, even though it might have been hitting the shoulder or hitting the chin, it was just barely grazing off him, just with the movement of Bobby Green. The angles he was hitting him with the shots, I think he hit him
168 significant. He threw like 300 shots.
300 shots in 50. It's like 100 shot a minute basically, and the angles he was hitting Nasrat, he was hitting him every single time. And Nasrat had his guard up, which was the most amazing thing when you look at it. Nasrat's guard's up, so in equals it should have been harder to hit him in the face, and Bobby Green wasn't even going for the body or the leg kicks. He only started doing that later on in the fight, when he basically got bored of punching Nasrat in the face. But yeah, other than describing it as a proper one-way fight on Bobby Green's part, he did an absolute boxing performance. And again, if you want to learn some boxing skills, go and watch that fight. He'll teach you a thing or two.
Yeah, and it's not like Nasrat is a can. He went into this fight with a pretty decent win streak on the go. But Bobby Green just absolutely outclassed him. A really dominant performance, and like you said, his boxing was on fire. The way he was laser point getting that jab through the guard multiple times, and even when Nasrat was getting his own shots, they just didn't seem to be doing any damage whatsoever. So when Nasrat was pushing forward, Bobby Green was still backing off and still peppering Nasrat with punches. It was just, like I said, a masterclass in a boxing performance. Great victory, and is pushing to make a big name for himself in that lightweight division. Whether that will translate to a title match, who knows? We've got a few big lightweight title matches coming up in the next few weeks, so let's just see how this road treats Bobby Green. But after that, we go to another lightweight match. This time, Alexander Hernandez going into this fight, I think 5 wins on the bounce, taking on Renato Moicano. And what a performance by Renato, just so dominant. Hernandez obviously looks like he's absolutely chiselled out of granite. Started pretty fresh as well, landing some high kicks, but Moicano just knew what he knew what his game plan had to be. He really started kind of turning up the pace very quickly. Goes for the feinted takedown, and then goes for the uppercuts. He knew that he was going to eat some leg kicks, and was able to grab one of those ones that landed to the body, and again attempt for the takedown. He's just Moicano's just dynamism in terms of wrestling and mixing it up with the striking. Just really kept the pressure high for this fight against Hernandez. Gave him a lot to think about in that first round. In the second round, came out on fire, lands shots pretty early. Hernandez does try to answer back, but then gets sucked into a tar clinch, gets a couple of knees. When Hernandez is able to break free, Moicano lands some shots on the way out. And as Hernandez was trying to kind of regather his thoughts, he gets hit with a knee, falls to the cage, and Moicano instantly saw his opening, went for the back, got that rear naked choke. And the most impressive thing for me was the performance was great, but the way he riled up the Dana White in the post fight interview with DC, saying he's finished people in less than a minute, still not got any kind of win bonus. He wants to. He's got kids to feed. He's got to live, which is just absolutely brilliant. But what a performance by Renato Moicano.
Yeah, absolutely. This another guy who's been in the UFC for a long time, and one of them again. A lot of hardcore fans will know his name, will know his background, wins, losses, back and forth, never really been on one set pathway, but when it comes to finishes, his rear naked choke, he's one of the best. Mm-hmm. He knows how to, as soon as you as a fighter give him that option to take you back and get that rear naked choke in, Renato Middleweight is one of the best fighters to be able to do that. And in a way I sort of feel sorry for Hernandez, because when I was watching the fight, he wasn't doing anything wrong in particular. When it on the feet, the kickboxing, I feel with a better boxer. Yeah, Ricardo has one of them sort of slow sort of punching movements where it's because he punches slow. You sometimes think with them sort of fighters, oh well, I can time him better. I'll be able to move out the way because they don't hit as fast as other fighters or as training partners that you train with. But because they do have that slow rate of punching instead of like a snappy fast one, you sometimes can misjudge that distance and the timing of going, right, I need to move out the way. And as we've seen with the uppercut, where he hit him the first time and then Hernandez were like, oh, I should have moved out of the way. That hit me, that was the slowest punch in the world. And then the second one, he moved out the way just in time, and it was like, I'm starting to time the distance here. And then he got just, in a way, a bit sloppy, but again, it wasn't really something that he made a mistake. He went in on the attack, he landed two of his own good shots just before getting clipped, and that's just the nature of the game. Sometimes that's the risk of what can happen when you do go in on your opponent, but if you don't go in on your opponent, you just end up getting picked apart at distance, especially with a guy who's got a long reach like Renato.
Yep, absolutely. So going into the middle of this card, and a fight that was essentially a setup for perhaps the next contender for the winner of the main event, Derek Brunson and Jared Cannonier in the middleweight division, ranked 3 and 4 respectively. Brunson's had an amazing run recently, just finishing opponents left, right and centre, and Cannonier is always dangerous. And it looked in the first round that perhaps it was going to go Brunson's way. Obviously he has that heavy wrestling base. He was able to pin Cannonier up against the cage, and whilst Cannonier was incredibly flexible, I mean one of his feet was essentially tucking the back of his neck for long periods of that for that round, but Brunson was able to get that wrestling in, able to essentially get some control on the ground, just to give Cannonier a lot to think about. But when you're talking on the feet, Cannonier was much more dangerous, able to clip Brunson a couple of times. That's not to say that Brunson hasn't got power as well, because he actually knocks Cannonier down in this first round, and it looked like we were gonna. It was going to be a long day at the office for Cannonier. When we get to the the end of the round, though, Brunson rushes in to get the control on the ground, and Cannonier almost ends up tapping out because he's sucking into the rear naked choke. But calmly knew that the clock was winding down, just held his composure and survived. Totally different outcome in the second round, though. Jesus wept. Brunson wanted to kind of build on that momentum from the first round. Cannonier essentially tries to force his way from the takedown, ends up back on his feet, lands some good shots. The end comes after there's a little bit of trading on the feet. Cannonier landing some kicks, Brunson landing some kicks, Brunson attempting to go for takedowns over and over again. But the finish comes when Cannonier lands a beautiful elbow, and then on the way out lands a backhanded punch, which is just fucking glorious, a beautiful shot. That essentially puts Brunson in a lot of danger. Ends up getting swarmed, goes to ground. Cannonier puts him asleep with some brutal shots, and yeah, great result for Cannonier. And he shouted his shot out to Dana White, saying he wants that next title shot.
I don't think you can deny him that title shot. He definitely going back to the first round. You summed it up perfectly, but then at the end of the round, when you were saying you were able to keep his composure, that's what we don't see a lot of, especially, and there's a couple of things in this fight that we don't see a lot of in mixed martial arts, especially in the UFC. When he was in that rear naked choke, psychologically he knew if he panicked, he was more than likely going to get finished. Not only with the 10 seconds on the clock, he knew just to keep himself calm, keep them breaths in. Don't be struggling, don't be scrambling. He has no reason to. He doesn't really have the neck. It's slightly on the chin. And the good thing about Cannonier is he used to fight at heavyweight. Mm-hmm. So he's been able to stand and bang with heavyweights, whether fighting in the UFC or in sparring. So this guy is a strong guy. Now coming down at middleweight, 2 whole weight classes, and just basically being pure muscle, especially dropping all the body fat mass to being able to fight at middleweight, coming from heavyweight. So then that you were saying, going into round 2, Brunson, personally for me, he should have made this fight a little bit more boring. This should have been trying to get Cannonier up against the cage and lean him up there and just take down after take down after take down, take down after take down after take down. Made it to where the fans are bored booing. It's sometimes a horrible way to win your fight, but when you've got a guy as strong and as and I'm going to say vicious, but not as in vicious as in like the guy wants to kill you, just more of he's got some serious power behind his hand, so once he hits you, you know about it. And with Brunson, he's been on a tear with this new blonde Brunson, especially in his last 4 or 5 performances. So he obviously he's got a little bit of confidence on him. Being 30 odd years of age, he knows that this was his last push. For me, he made the mistake of just not wrestling, not using what he is best at enough. He really allowed Cannonier to push him away and be able to take little bits to centre stage and get them big shots. So even though when he started to get a little bit wild on the shots, because he knew inevitably after 2 shots he's going to try and grab my leg, because that's exactly what he was doing. Mm-hmm. In the second round he grabbed the leg and took him down straight away, which was absolutely perfect. But he should have carried on that pressure straight away, the first round, the second round and so on. But as we've seen, Gerald Cannonier put a stamp on that fight, just what he needed to do, and say, listen, this is the performance I can do against this kind of fighter. What do you reckon I can do against whoever won the main event?
Exactly. But before we get to that main event, we've got a core main event to talk about, and two of the most popular fighters in the heavyweight division. Hometown boy Derek Lewis, obviously coming off the disappointment of not being able to win the title last time he was in Houston. Trying to make amends, going up against Tuivasa, a fighter who's slowly but surely raised those rankings and has become a massive fan favourite just because of his just never say die attitude, his shoeies.
I mean, I was about to say, just his shoeies alone. Yeah,
everything about him. He's just such a cool guy. And this fight was essentially kind of like the last fight. This was lining up who may be next for a title shot. I think Ty going into this fight was ranked number 3. Derek Lewis was...
No, he weren't. Ty was ranked number 11.
Derek Lewis was ranked number 3. Ty was looking to climb that rankings. And what a fight we got. You're not going to get technical BJJ from these two guys, although we did actually see a little bit of that amateur wrestling base that Derek Lewis talks about but never really has to show anything of. But this was standing and banging. Multiple times in this first round, I honestly thought that Tuivasa had been knocked clean out because he was just getting hit with some huge shots. But his attitude is, when I get hit, I hit back. He doesn't curl up into a ball. He doesn't go for the defence. He just throws fists back. And there were multiple times when in the first round, Ty landed some huge shots. Both these guys' chins were just absolutely phenomenal. For me, I think Lewis took the first round just because his shots were doing clearly more damage. And then you throw in the wrestling and the trips up against the cage. Lewis was certainly the more dominant in that first round. Second round, totally different story. Lewis started to miss a lot more of his shots. Tuivasa started to kind of slip a lot more of Lewis's shots. Lewis did land a couple of nice combinations, making Tuivasa back up against the cage, which leads into a clinch. Lewis's attempts for another trip, then essentially they break away and both just start. I mean, you would have thought that this was the 5th round in a fight that was really close. They just started standing and banging at each other. Both guys landing some huge shots, but Ty catches Lewis with an elbow, clean as you like, and Lewis essentially fell asleep in slow motion. You could see the arms drop, the head started tucking, and then he face planted into the octagon. What a finish by Tuivasa, a walk away finish, and the biggest win of his UFC career by a mile.
Oh, definitely his biggest win. Coming from rank number 11 and getting a win over the rank number 3, and not only rank number 3, but Derek Lewis, the king of knockouts in the UFC, 13 knockouts, the most knockouts in the UFC, and you were able to come in and overcome the storm in the first round and being able to put on that spectacular performance and knock Derek Lewis out and put your name in that position of going, right, this is definitely our next title contender. Obviously, with the way Francis beat Cyril Gane, I don't see why Cyril gets a rematch. I know there's not been anything said about that on the USC's part, but when it comes to groups and people speaking about mixed martial arts, it has been theirs. But again, I don't see in that fight where Cyril Gane had any sort of argument or value to get a rematch. So with Tuivasa being able to come out and beat Derek Lewis the way he did, to me, he's just took that next title shot. Mm-hmm. So and then going on to that, Derek Lewis, man, fighting in your hometown twice and getting 2 losses. I think the guy should just stop fighting in Houston for a bit. It's one of them. I know it sounds weird, and I'm not taking it piss. It's just when some fighters have the lucky routines, what they do to get some stuff, and
like the superstitions.
Yeah, and for my personally, one of my superstitions for him is him fighting in his hometown. It's twice now, and it's not. People can't even say it's the pressure, because Derek Lewis has been in so many different fights with so many big names and so many different stages where pressure to him is white noise. It's second nature. It doesn't mean nothing, and so it just comes down to just fighting. And Derek Lewis is one of the best in that division. He can knock anybody out on a good day, but when it comes to him fighting in Houston, I don't know. The luck is just not on his side. It's a perfect example. In this fight, he was dominating throughout round one, and even throwing in his own wrestling, like you were saying, and it still managed to not go his way in Houston. You just start to feel sorry for the guy, because again, it's one of them where he didn't do nothing wrong. This is the heavyweight division. You've got 220 plus pound guys throwing lever at each other, especially when you've got the two biggest hitters in the division. Someone's going to sleep, and just unfortunately it had to be Derek Lewis in front of his own town again. Yeah,
and I was talking with Chairshot fan Ray Cash, who's also a Houston guy, and yeah, he said pretty much the same, that Derek just seems to struggle in front of that Houston crowd, which is a shame, because he's such a nice guy. Seems to be like no airs and graces about him. And I'm sure he'll say in the post fight interviews, just he'll tell the truth about this fight, how it didn't go all his way. But yeah, maybe step away from Houston for a little bit.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, that's not me saying that Houston's probably a shit place to be fighting. This is coming from a fighter's point of view, who not only is a trainer and fighter himself, but who also helps other trainers, especially with the uni course and doing the sports and exercise science, getting to train with a lot of different sort of athletes, and a lot of them are fighters, and it's just a superstition that a lot of fighters have. They don't like to fight in their own town. It's just, and yeah, I know I just said Tech added pressure out of Derek Lewis's case because it's second nature, but in this case, yeah, it's among the pressure, and then not only that, it's you've got more of you're fighting in front of your family, and your routines are all messed up. Even travelling times, you're fighting not in your own town. Your travelling time could be 2 hours, whereas you're fighting in your own town, it could be 15 minutes. In your mind, you're like, shit, what's going on here? That can start throwing you off. So it's a lot of different stuff in fighters' eyes it's just superstitions. We could do a full podcast on it.
Yeah, but we haven't got the time or inclination for that, so let's talk about this main event, the rematch of Robert Whittaker and Israel Adesanya. Carlos, I know this is the fight you've been looking forward to for a long time. This is one of your boys, so yeah, why don't you run us through this fight?
This fight it basically went as I expected it to. I knew we wasn't going to see a spectacular knockout like it was the first time. These two, like Whittaker said in the end, everyone knows that them two are the best in that division.
Yeah.
Whittaker was able to come back and win three good performances over top contenders in the middleweight division to earn a rematch with Israel Adesanya. He's learned not to get sloppy, even though in this fight he did get sloppy a couple of times, and luckily enough it paid out for him that he didn't get caught. He managed to catch his ear a couple of times, but yeah, he were able to overcome, go back into his own gym, study where he went wrong, and not reinvent the wheel, but make adjustments to it, like he said in the press conference, which is a really good analogy. I think it was perfect the way he were able to describe it, and he were able to this time take the fight to the distance. Israel Adesanya is still the best striker in the UFC. That's just my opinion. Technically sound, fair enough. In this fight, yes, he wasn't able to finish Robert Whittaker, but his striking was still smooth and pristine like it always is. He wasn't able to catch Izzy with a lot of the hooks, and I think that were more Whittaker slipping whilst going to the attack in, rather than just leaving the head still in the middle. And Israel Adesanya had to try and get a little bit of a adjustment to adapt to that, and I think he was finding it a little bit hard. So he opened up with a lot more of the leg kicks and the body kicks, throwing a couple of head kicks in there. The head kicks wasn't quite as successful as the leg kicks, and the leg kicks absolutely teared Robert Whittaker's lead leg up, and that leg is going to be throbbing in the morning. He's not going to be able to walk on it, guarantee that. But yeah, Izzy was able to, still with a long reach, 7 reach advantage is a heavy reach advantage, especially when you're such a high level striker and you're able to keep people at distance in the first place, let alone the much shorter guy, which Robert Whittaker is. But yeah, he was still able to impress me, did Whittaker. He were able to bring the fight forward to Israel Adesanya, and even though it went to decision, the coaches had perfect information to give to the fighters, especially Robert's coaches, where it's, listen, stop just using the jab, you're being too left heavy, you need to bring that right in. When you're just doing that 1-1, you need to bring that 2 in, and that's where you're going to have success. And that's when we've seen in the 3rd, 4th and 5th, he was able to catch Israel Adesanya with that right hand a lot more, just by bringing it in and utilising it. But what we did see after the first round, when Robert Whittaker got knocked down, that's when his coaches in the first break told him, listen, you need to relax here. Remember the first fight, that's exactly what happened. You got caught. Israel Adesanya knew that in the first round that Whittaker's still dangerous, so he didn't rush him, which is a perfect way to just understand the development of Israel Adesanya's game. Not only is a professional kickboxer coming into mixed martial arts and signing with the biggest promotion in the world, to then defend your belt and then hurting the second best guy in the division and not rushing in and finishing him, because you know at any point that guy can crack you and still hurt you.
Yeah.
Which is perfect way to say that Israel Adesanya is a well-rounded fighter.
He certainly is, and I think you're absolutely right. He may very well be the best striker in the world. The angles and the positions he can hit you from defy gravity. The reason why it's called the last Stylebender, because he can do stuff that a lot of other fighters just cannot do. And unfortunately for Robert Whittaker, he's in the era of Israel Adesanya. Any other era, he would have been a long-term champion.
Well, that's it. He beats every other guy. He beats every other guy in the division, bar from Israel Adesanya. It's like the case of, I know he were a double-weight world champion, but it's like the case of Daniel Cormier with John Jones in the lightweight division, light heavyweight division. Daniel Cormier beat everybody else, but he just couldn't beat John Jones.
Yeah.
And Robert Whittaker, that's exactly the same story right here. Robert Whittaker is the champion when Izzy's not. He beats everybody else, but he just can't beat Izzy. Izzy's just too far ahead of everybody, and it just goes to show it where, and not only that, the perfect thing in this fight is his takedown defense is still on point, he's still high level, which it always has been. A lot of people would have looked at his last performance with his other last performance, not doing this one, against Jan Blachowicz, and taking that and studying it, going, oh well, that's the way to beat him, then I need to take him down. But it's not as easy as saying it, especially in that middleweight division when you're not as big or as strong as Jan. You're Jan's 6'1" and you're 5'9". Jan's 220 plus pound on fight night, and you're still pushing that 200 mark just to try and get a little bit extra on your opponent. And with Israel Adesanya's takedown defense, you're not going to be able to take him down as easy. And Robert Whittaker was able to prove that fact tonight. It weren't no secret, and he wasn't keeping it no secret. He trained heavily in wrestling this camp for Israel Adesanya. did it pay out for him? In my personal opinion, it didn't. He wasn't able to get him down, and the 2 or 3 times when he did get him down, Israel Adesanya was back to his feet enough to where I wouldn't class it as a significant takedown. A takedown, yeah. A significant takedown, no. He wasn't able to move to or advance to a better position or control the fight or control his position. It might have been putting him up against the fence, but in a championship fight, you can't really score the fight of going, yeah, he controlled Israel Adesanya up against the fence, but Israel Adesanya is defending the takedown. So in that sort of sense, who's winning that? Is it the champion who's defending the takedown, or is it the opponent who's putting the champion up against the cage? It's a hard one to score. So in the way as what I spoke about Brunson being so lacklustre in not being as heavy in the wrestling, I think that's what Robert Whittaker sort of did, and especially with his coaches when they were telling him that he needs to pressure more, especially with the 1-1-3 and then the level change. They wanted to see more singles and more double legs, and just put it down to confidence, or just put it down to just how good Israel Adesanya's takedown defence was. At certain points, Robert Whittaker just gave up on the old wrestling game plan and just gone, I just need to stand and bang with this guy and take it back to the Aussie way.
Yeah, you're right, and what a great fight it was for MMA fans. What a great fight, and kind of like a spectacle it was for Antipodean fighters, Australian, New Zealand. Just an amazing performance. And a little bit of a fun fact, at the first time that these two guys fought, back in Melbourne, Tartavasa was on that card as well, and he got beat by submission to Sergey Spivak on that day. So what a transition there for Tartavasa.
And now he's in talk. Well, in my opinion, he's definitely going to be the next one challenging Ngannou for that title if Ngannou's still at UFC.
Yep, so that essentially wraps up UFC 271, but it's not the end of UFC. There's a massive long run all the way through till mid-May. I think we've got UFC every weekend, and this next weekend coming up, one of probably the most cursed cards in recent memory. UFC Fight Night was meant to be headlined by Rafael Dos Anjos versus Rafael Fiziev. That got cancelled. Ilya Latifi versus Alexander Romanov got cancelled. Corey McKenna versus Elise Reed got cancelled. Mohamed Mokayev versus Cody Durden got cancelled. So we're now being headlined by Johnny Walker taking on Jamal Hill. But still,
and that's it.
It's still a decent card though, because you've got Kyle Dorcas versus Julian Marquez, Jim Miller's on the card, Joaquin Buckley's on the card, so still going to be an entertaining card. So tune in to 5 Rounds next week for that. But yeah, that's pretty much all from us. So let's do the promotions and then let's get out of here. So first of all, go and check out all the rest of the content on the networks that we are so proud to be involved with. That's here on Chairshot, that's here on Radio Techers, and obviously that's here on Visionaries Global Media. You can follow me at Podfather Mags, follow Carlos here at Kirkbait_Carlos, and follow the show at 5 Rounds Pod. Thank you all for listening, and that is the end.
Adios, amigos.
Oh, it's good to hear that again.
Spinning back kick, he's hurt. He hurt him big time. He's trying to finish.